Yeah, I
Okay.
can't
Start
see it
video.
yet. Oh, there's your
And
face.
here we are.
Oh my goodness. It's so good
What's
to see
up?
you.
It's wonderful to see you.
You look so like glowing and like you look like just you
It's
look good.
it's a natural light, but
So
thank
like
you.
natural.
Thank you. You look awesome as well.
Thank you. I'm in the basement with absolutely zero natural light, but the opposite, but
At
nice.
least you have some peace. Not
Yeah.
that you wouldn't have peace anyway, but you know what I mean.
No, I found that this is like the good spot where like there's not like the risk of someone like walking by and passing or like, I don't know, or like
Yeah.
the dog finding me or whatever. Like this is the good, like quiet hobbit hole of the basement. So for recording. So yeah.
Like when your dad had that moment and your mom by in the background.
I know. Oh my gosh. I feel like it's almost at this point, like with like the Zoom errors that everyone must be having, like everyone just expects it to happen at some point. Like it's almost like I feel like at this point, probably like not even funny anymore for people. Like they're just, oh, yep, okay, cool.
Oh my gosh, it is.
That's
It's wild.
It really is. But like, I don't know. I don't mind. I feel like I'm getting used to it. I don't know. It feels so normal now to like talk to people on Zoom. Like it feels
Zoom
like,
life.
yeah, big time. It's like I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how much longer. It'll be interesting to see how much people utilize Zoom when this is over, quote unquote, even though I think it's going
I
to be more,
know.
yeah. Like I feel like it'll be really cool to see like if people continue to do like Zoom, like happy hours and things like that with like family, like on other side, like in other states and like as alternatives to like getting together and
Oh, I guarantee it.
yeah,
I
I kind of hope so. I feel like it's fun. I'm such a like there's so many times where like I would be so down to socialize like on Zoom and like stay at home and be comfy and like still check in with people and talk to people, but I have like no energy to go out and like be in the world.
same.
So I feel
Same.
like I hope it sticks around for that sake. So it's
For
awesome.
sure.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming on and joining
No
us. I
problem. This
figured I
is
listened to
great.
your episode of Grounds After Rounds, and you were like you felt like such a podcast like pro and natural, and
Really?
you sounded like so comfortable and like just like you've been podcasting for.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was good, and like we have been thinking about. I've been trying to think of like all just kind of various content for Beast Feast, and like one thing I definitely wanted to do is have people on that were athletes themselves in college and high school and coaches and stuff too. So you
Mhm.
jumped my mind, of course.
Woohoo!
So we're on the Grounds After Rounds motto of like always be recording. So I'll cut off that beginning part, but we're in it.
Okay, we're in it to win it here.
So welcome back, Beasts. We have Ryenn with us today. Ryenn is a Fairwinds member, so you might have seen her around. Tends to be like morning classes, so maybe you haven't seen her in passing, but sometimes she pops in the evening.
It's
So
totally dependent on what was going on.
yeah, but nowadays, obviously, we don't see each other in passing anywhere. So anyway, I know.
I know.
But I'll let you kind of introduce yourself and all that good stuff. And then we're going to have a fun conversation about who Ryenn is, what Ryen's done sports wise, and just chat. So,
Okay.
awesome.
So Ryenn Micalletti, and I have been coaching for 9 years. I just recently finished up coaching at the Naval Academy, and I was coaching women's basketball for 4 years there. And prior to that, I coached at 2 Division II schools in Western Pennsylvania. And then prior to that, I was also at another Division II school, which was an NAIA school, but all for women's basketball. And NAIA is just not NCAA, basically. Okay. They're under a totally different umbrella. Okay. And they actually, they may have existed before the NCAA. I'm not positive about that, but a lot of those schools are like Midwestern schools.
Okay. Cool.
So, and they have a Division I and Division II. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So that's what I did before.
Awesome. And you played basketball as well in college?
I did. I got an academic and athletic scholarship combined for a full scholarship at Seton Hill University, which is a Division II school in Western Pennsylvania, like a little private school that I absolutely love and adore. I'm repping Seton Hill today.
Oh, look at
If
you.
you're watching this podcast, go Griffins. Okay. It was like going to Hogwarts, but that's a whole nother.
Oh my gosh, wait, that's so cool. Is it, you
Yeah.
said because like the buildings and stuff, like they were old
buildings and Griffins, Gryffindor, all that. The colors, we were red and yellow, or crimson and gold. But yeah, depends on it. But yeah, it was definitely like Hogwarts. We would have like once a year, maybe twice a year, a Hogwarts dinner. So the dining area would just all be decked out, and you felt like, yeah, you were actually a part of Harry Potter.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was wild. It was wild.
I'm like a pretty big Harry Potter fan. Like I definitely, like I was like that kid that went to like the book releases at midnight because I was
you're
like
legit.
up as they were coming out. Like I was a big Harry Potter fan. So that's awesome. That's really cool.
So which house? So every Harry Potter fan has like a house that they fall under. Like what would you say?
I like, of course, like everyone wants to be Gryffindor, but like I feel like more like Hufflepuff. Like
Hufflepuff is up your alley. Like, I could see that.
But being honest, for like my real personality type, yeah. What about you?
Gotcha. I've been told by another Harry Potter fan, anyways. And then I took a quiz on Facebook, so it's definitely real.
Totally.
So official that I am, what is it, Ravenclaw or whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh my gosh.
So we just nerded out on Harry Potter.
That's okay though. Hey, that's what we do here. Like,
yes.
I think most of the kids know like that I like Harry Potter because like sometimes I give them like random coaching cues that are based off Harry Potter lines. Like with like getting a handstand, like this is like the most famous one. I said to Anna, I was like, think platform 9 3/4. Like if you are running towards it, like, or stepping towards the wall to kick up to the wall to a handstand and you like pause and hesitate, you're gonna like Ron Weasley and you're gonna like crash. You're not gonna make it. But if you just like full like Harry Potter, like the rest of the Weasleys, like you just send it into the wall, you're gonna land in that handstand. But if you have that like psych out moment, you're gonna like,
oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
And she was like, oh, okay. And then she did it and got her first handstand. And I was like, okay, J.K. Rowling, thank you. Like,
thank you, J.K.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
But yeah, so did you say, like, obviously because you had a scholarship, you played high school basketball as well. What was at what point did basketball really become your favorite sport? I imagine, like, my assumption of you is that you played other sports too, and that you like probably were really good at other sports as well. And like, I feel like it's always like there's a turning point where you kind of have to pick what your sport is. And so I was kind of curious, what other sports did you play? When did you pick basketball? Why did you pick basketball?
Okay. So I started out as a ballerina. I did ballet for 7 years.
Oh my gosh.
And, but basketball had always been a major part of my dad's side of my family, especially, but I also had a cousin who was really good on my mom's side as well. But my dad was a great basketball player where we're from back in Newcastle. And so I wanted to play basketball because he played basketball, and then all my cousins played basketball, and I'm like, I got to figure this out. And it's crazy because the majority of my dad's side of my family, there's a lot of guys. Like there's a lot of us, but I'd probably say about 70-30 made up of men. Okay. So, or boys, and just, being around guys. Yeah. So growing up, I wanted to be a part of whatever my cousins were playing. And so whether it was football, basketball, playing baseball out in the yard, I would do that. So I went from being a ballerina to gradually picking up basketball. And that was about at 10 years old. So I think I started late compared to a lot of basketball players. They usually play in like a little Y league when you're like 6 or 7. Like I did not do that. I was in recitals and wearing things that I did not want to wear.
So funny.
So yeah. So I picked up basketball, did that a ton, spent a lot of time outside on a basketball hoop. And then get in your school league and stuff like that. And what was my next sport? I played a lot of football outside, and I really wanted to play football for like Pop Warner. Like I wanted to do that, but my whole family shut that down. They're like, no, your little self is not playing Pop Warner football.
Oh my gosh.
But I still am a little upset about that till this day. So after that, I started with one of my friends back where I'm from. She played softball, like slow pitch softball. And that's really big in Western Pennsylvania, slow pitch softball at all ages. So I went to a game with her. It was one of her games. I was hanging out with her, and she was like, hey, I have a softball game. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll go. So I went with her. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. It's kind of like baseball, but the ball's a little bit bigger, but all right. And they needed another player. So I played my first softball game with no experience and wore jeans. I had bell bottoms. I swear, I had bell bottoms on.
Oh my God.
That was in that era.
That's so
funny. In bell bottoms and probably some platform shoes in the early 2000s. And played some baseball.
I love it.
Or softball, I'm sorry.
But,
And so I played softball. I did track. I played for a team, like an all-star team for slow pitch softball that went to national, which was fun. So that was like kind of my break from basketball and the speed and all that constant, stuff like that. So basketball, slow pitch softball, track. I did various events in track. I did pole vaulting because they needed a pole vaulter. So I was like, sure, I'll do it. Why not? Just to like want to meet.
Jumping in to whatever.
Yeah, just always filling in. Like, hey, we need somebody. I'm like, sure, I'll do it.
Whatever. Yeah.
Pole vaulting. I did the 400-meter run, which I cannot believe I did that now because I hate running. 4x1 relay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like we've had conversations like working out. We're both kind of like about running. It's because we're like every time there's like a 400 or something, we're like,
count us out.
Yeah.
we'll see you at the end.
Maybe not.
Yeah. So I did like the 4x100-meter relay, which sprints, I'm there with you. I could do some sprints. But when you put that 400, I'm like, I don't know.
It's too far.
So those were the sports that I played. We didn't have soccer. We didn't have lacrosse. We didn't have any of that back where I'm from. But if we did, I 100% would have played it.
Yeah. So just like all around athlete, just jumping in. That's kind of what I figured. Yeah.
Yeah. If they offer it, I'll try it. Why not?
Awesome. That's cool. So you ended up you were playing basketball in high school as well, obviously. And were you on a club team or anything outside of your high school team or just playing high school basketball?
No, I did. I played some AAU. Did I play every summer? Yeah, I would say I played every summer while I was in high school for an AAU team. But I was also playing slow pitch softball in the summer as well. So I would just go back and forth and do stuff like that.
Cool. Did you, was there a certain point where you like knew that you wanted to play basketball in college, or was it kind of like recruiting options came to you and then you decided to go that route, or did you know that was something? Like I know with myself with sailing, like I from early on in high school was like, I want to sail in college. Like before coaches even remotely knew who I was or cared and like at all, like I was like, this is something I want. I'm going to seek these like conversations with coaches and schools that I'm interested in. So that kind of was it kind of like a less aggressive OCD style?
No, 100%, 10 years old after playing, picking up basketball and playing in the little league. I was like, you know what? I'm going to college. I'm going to play for UConn, and then I'm going to the WNBA.
Love it.
That was it. That was it for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's why I was curious. I always like to hear what people's like kind of like big dreams were like with their sport.
Oh yeah, I was going to either play for UConn or I was going to play for the Tar Heels, UNC. One of the two. I was going, and I was going to be the best point guard ever.
Oh my gosh.
And then go to the WNBA.
That's good. Did you, I don't know anything about like what schools are good in basketball, let alone like really like where those schools in particular rank.
Yeah.
Is UConn like Division One?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. I'm like such
yes.
a novice. I'm like, I don't know.
At that time, UConn and Tennessee were like their Division One. Just that is the height of basketball, collegiate greatness for women's basketball, anyways. Like if you were good, that you're going to one of those two powerhouses.
That's so funny. I would never like UConn. That's so like random in my mind. Like,
oh my gosh, it's magical dynasty.
It's awesome. Awesome. And so then at Seton Hall, are they?
The Hill. It was Seton Hill. So there's a difference. That's okay because people do that all the time.
Because so Seton Hall, you went to Seton Hill. Seton Hall is where one of our seniors, Julia, is going. One of the
That's awesome.
And so
Seton Hall is Division One.
Okay. She's not playing at any sport.
Okay.
Not in a bad way, Julia. Like I just was clarifying.
Okay.
It's just going there. She's smart and awesome and brilliant. Seton Hill, is that Division 1, 2, 3?
2. Division 2.
Mm-hmm. I said that at the beginning. Cool. That I think it's really cool. Like, I mean, I think like my best advice, like for all college athletes, and it'd be interesting to see if you agree. Like, and it's what a lot of people say is like pick a school like for the academics, like as well. And I kind of didn't do that. Like I just kind of ignored that advice. Like I think that's why I always give that advice. So I think that's awesome that you went and you had an academic and athletic scholarship. I think that's like really cool to hear. Do you feel like, did you like the school like for academics as well? Or did you feel like you really ended up choosing it because of the basketball side of things?
Good question. I ultimately chose it because of basketball, because I had a few offers to other really good academic schools as well. Yeah. But I had heard, like, once I started telling people, because I had never heard of Seton Hill when I was being recruited. I'm like, what? Not the Hall? Who's Hill? And so I started telling people, like I would tell my teacher, Seton Hill University is recruiting me, and yeah, I'm going on a visit. And they were like, that's a really good school academically, because they wouldn't know anything athletically because it was such a small school. It used to be an all-girls school before I got there, and stuff like that. So yeah, academics played a part, but athletics made the final decision for me.
Yeah, I feel like same. I mean, I don't know, like from the very beginning was like, I'm only going to schools where I can sail, and I'm only going to schools that are like, you know, varsity teams. Like sailing's kind of weird. Like there's some club teams that are actually like really good because there's no divisions because it's such a small pool of schools.
I had no idea they had club.
It's so weird. It's so weird to explain. Like, so there's districts, but there's only a certain number of schools. So there's like NISA, like New England, like Mesa, Mid-Atlantic, SESA, which is the South Atlantic, and then there's like the West Coast League that I don't even know their like acronym. But there's schools in all of those, and like there's schools that are really good and, you know, end up at top 5 at nationals, you know, some years, but they're club teams, and it's just is based off of like funding. And then there's varsity teams, but I like really was set on like, I want to go to school with a varsity team because not in like a egotistical way, but I wanted the kind of like benefits that you get with it, which ended up being really helpful, like the tutoring, the other like facilities that college athletes get. Like I knew that was going to be something that like was going to be helpful to me. I don't know, maybe some of it was like ego too. I was like, I want to go somewhere where like people respect it as a sport.
Yeah.
Like, maybe because in high school, like even being in Annapolis, like everyone was like sailing, like they were very like judgy of us, and I was like, we're actually like good.
That's
and like,
surprising.
Like it's so, yeah, I mean, but I think it's hard, like unless you necessarily do it or know someone well that does it, it's easy to not think of it as like as physical or as intensive a sport as it is. But yeah, anyway, like I kind of was so like set on like, I want to go to a school that like has varsity, like I want to pick sailing. And then from there, I looked at them academically and I kind of picked, and I like went to college not even knowing like what I wanted to study, and like just knew I wanted to sail, and then like picked it.
Yeah.
Everything works out. But I think it is, I like hearing different college athletes' stories in different sports of how they kind of ended up with that balance of like balancing your like athletic desires with obviously the practical academic side of college. Like
yeah.
really for, because I think it's just good to hear different stories, because like I think it's so easy when you're, especially when you're caught up in it, and especially when there's scholarship money and things tied to the sport, to like really only focus on that. But like at the end of the day, like when you're done with your college sport, like after those 4 years, like that's kind of it, unless you're like really like, you know, that you are going to be pro in whatever sport.
Absolutely.
And, like, you then like, great, awesome, good for you. But like there was kind of, I remember like going into my senior year of college, this moment where I was like, I didn't have a plan for like after this, like I just, my whole life, like I thought through like college sailing.
Yeah,
And
that's it.
the last thought I had. And I was like, oh, I don't really even know what I want to like do professionally.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it's so, that's so, yeah, that's awesome. I love hearing that. I love hearing all the different balances and stuff and all that good stuff. So that's actually a great transition. So did you go into coaching right out of college?
I did, like right out.
Right out. That's
And without wanting, like I did not, you know, play basketball. My career ended and think, you know what, I want to go and be a coach. That is not how it went for me. Like I had no, like coaching wasn't even in my realm of thinking.
Okay, interesting.
And I think I mentioned it in my podcast, like the last one that I did with Jack and Eric, that my assistant coach got a head coaching job and was just like, hey, do you want to coach with me? And I'm like, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like most like 22-ish year olds would be like, okay, a job, sure.
Yeah. So I did that. Exactly.
Yeah. And did you, that was at, what school was that at? Did you go to first?
So my first coaching job was at Point Park University, which was that NAIA school I was telling you about. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. And how was that like transition right into coaching? Did it feel like, I feel like you're such a natural coach, but then again, like I've only known you like as someone that coaches, like, but to me, like it's always made so much sense that like that's kind of what you did. Like I just feel like you have this passion for your sport, but also are just so good with people and talking.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, you are. It's true. Like I just wonder.
Appreciate that.
Was that like an easy transition, or was it hard to go from being an athlete to coaching athletes? Like I coached high school sailing like right out of college, and I was like, oh, I don't. And I still like will say this, like coaching sailing, not my strong suit. Was a pretty good sailor. Coaching it, not good. Cause like I struggle so much with putting to words what I can physically do. And I think that I kind of had this realization of like, oh, like coaching is not just that easy just because you did something. But so I was wondering like how that transition kind of went for you, or if it was easy and natural. And
great question.
Yeah.
I would definitely say it was a hard transition, but not to where anyone else would think that I was struggling. It was more or less like I'm always thinking of my experience. I'm not thinking of their experience and how it's completely different. So you're, you know, back when I played, and really that it doesn't matter back when you played. So I would say that was a major transition for me when coaching. Like, you know, people are crying over their pinky being scratched or whatever the case may be, and I'm just like, you're really upset about this? But yeah, so that is what I struggled with, I would say, the most when I first made the transition.
Yeah. I feel like, oh gosh, that's just making me reflect on so many different things. I think that's a good way to put it, of like taking it and kind of mentally, almost like compartmentalizing it, of like, this is a separate entity than like my experience with when I was playing. Like, this is you. And like, I'm only thinking about what I'm saying to you in the realm of your experience. Like, the realm of my experience. That might be like, it's just good, like life advice, I think, for anyone. If you're helping someone that's struggling with something, it's try to stick within their circle of knowledge and experience. Yeah. So you were coaching there, you went on, and like you said, you've been coaching now for 6 years. Is that
9 years?
9 years.
Yeah. 2011, I graduated from Seton Hill.
Okay. So what do you feel like is the biggest lesson you've learned in that time? Hard-hitting question.
You're stumping me. The biggest lesson.
What is a lesson?
What is a lesson? Okay.
Yeah,
a lesson is, I would say, like, throughout all of this, has been you as an athlete, like, so putting myself in the athlete's shoes, I would say using your resources. That has been the biggest lesson for me, where as an athlete, when I played, you have your strength and conditioning, expert on your coaching staff, whether it is one of your coaches or you actually have a strength and conditioning coach.
You're right.
In picking their brain and saying, hey, what can I do to be better? Instead of them having to say, hey, we're doing this Monday, Wednesday, Friday, what's practicing? Just putting that extra, time in and just wanting to get better for yourself. Or even your coach, what is their philosophy in coaching? You want to know that while you're getting recruited and stuff, but even just as an athlete, like asking them, like, so you can be a better player for your team and for your coach. Those are the biggest lessons that, like, you can also apply in life. Like, think about the people and what they do for a living and who's in your circle and what you can learn from them. I would say is a major lesson that I learned while coaching.
That's awesome. And like, this is what I meant by you're such a great like podcast guest, because you're helping me like transition where I want to take the conversation like so naturally. Because I was thinking like off of that, like that's great advice. Like, because I was kind of transitioning to wanting to talk about what are some things that you would recommend to someone that wants to play their sport in college, and what are kind of questions to ask coaches, or what are things that you can do, like, especially in your early like underclassmen years. Like, that's something that I wish that I did more of like early on, was just like seek and ask, like, what else can I be doing? Because at the end of the day, whether you have 10 people on your team or 30 or 40, like, I don't know how big some sports get, like, you like, there's, maybe there's a small number, there's less coaches than people. And like, you have to go seek, coaching sometimes. And they're not just going to come to you and say like, Ryenn, like, you need to do X, Y, and Z, like, to get better. If you want to be starting, or if you want us to be, winning more or whatever. And like, I think that it's maybe different than high school sports. Like, I don't know, like maybe because sailing's so different for so many reasons, but my high school team was so small that I kind of not that I didn't have to try, but coaches pretty often were like, this is what we need to be working on, because they're talking to a small group of people. And then I got to college, and especially as an underclassman, I was just like kind of waiting, like, all right, like, tell me what I need to do. And like, you need to kind of take initiative and ask sometimes. But even before you get there, like when you're kind of searching colleges or vetting, places that are recruiting you, or just looking on your own, I think asking questions like that is like, what do you have a separate strength and conditioning coach? Like, what does that look like? What do those workouts look like? What is your coaching style? Things like that, like really kind of almost like interviewing them, like, and less is like, yes, you are kind of like, not kind of, yes, you are usually in a position where when you are visiting as a recruit, like you are a guest and you're like looking to impress them, and kind of thinking that they're interviewing you and vetting you to be on the team, but also like you should kind of vet them and like interview.
100%.
Like, I don't know, like it's hard to explain, but like I think that's such an underrated part of the process. I think like I was so much in like, oh, I'm so lucky to be here, and like I was, but also like it was my life, for the next 4 years, and like people that were gonna shape a lot of that. Like, it's fair to ask coaches like, hey, do you think that you're going to be here for 4 more years? Like, do you want to be here for 4 more years? Because I know friends that got to schools and then like immediately that coach left, and they were like, cool, I picked this school because of you, or like, and now you're gone. Or like asking like, like strength conditioning coach, kind of what's your coaching style? Like, what is the team dynamic like just interviewing you questions. So I guess that's kind of like my general advice for people.
No, you're hitting the nail on the head. Like, do your homework. Do your homework when it comes to picking a school. Just making any major life decision whatsoever, you have to put the time in to do your homework.
What are kind of like, and I guess it's good to hear that you like agree, like as a coach that was involved in recruiting a lot, I know you were, especially in your last job at the academy, what are kind of some things that like you look for outside of athletic ability in athletes that you're recruiting, or what, you know what I mean? Like, I think like if I was a coach, I've never coached college sports, but if I had an athlete come and ask me those questions about like, do you think you'll be here? What is the strength and conditioning like? What's your coaching style? I'd be like, wow, like they're doing their homework. Like, but what would be your things that would really impress you outside of those?
Like, are you asking as if they were going to ask me, or question or things that as a coach I would look for in them?
Both. I don't know. Like,
Either one.
Yeah, either one. Because I think that, at least when I think back to myself in high school, like I was thinking that so much of it, but on both sides, like I thought they were really only looking at me for my athletic ability, and I was really only looking at them for their results at the end of the
Okay.
season. And I think that an underrated part of that process, and from the high school athletes that I know, both sailors and some of the beasts that I've talked to, I think that so much of it is focused on the athletic ability, like as it should be, but there's this whole personal element, I guess. So as a coach, like what are some like personality traits or things that you're looking like in your conversation on a visit of like, oh, this person is kind of like this, or like this person is kind of like that. And the things you're looking for outside of their on paper or on the court athletic ability, if that makes sense.
So the first two things that you see when you're recruiting, normally, unless it's word of mouth and another coach is saying, hey, you need to look at so and so, when you're watching an athlete perform, obviously you're looking for skill. Okay, so let's say they're great, like they can hit shots or hit the ball or whatever the sport may be.
Yeah.
Awesome, but you're also watching for their body language and what is their interaction with their teammates, what's their interaction with their coaches like. Do they talk to their parents during the game? And that's like, normally that is a red flag. You're like, oh, there's extra coaching going on here that's normally too hands-on. Now it's different, for your parents to be cheering and all that stuff, but if you're receiving actual coaching, or there's like those little moments, if you're going to step up to the plate or you're about to hit a foul shot and you're looking up in the stands, that you're kind of like, okay, yeah, there's something there. Okay. Yeah. So you take a look at that. I would say then on top of that, okay, let's say your body language is excellent. You're high-fiving your teammates, you're engaged with them, you have eye contact with your coaches during timeouts or halftime or, whatever the case may be. All that's great. Next, you're looking at academics. Okay, so how are these kids in school? Is this recruit, doing half decent? Are they struggling? Why are they struggling? Is there an issue with learning? And if there is, that's okay. That is learning, issues are perfectly fine depending on where you can go to school, but you just want to know that going in.
Right.
If there are issues with academics just because of maybe laziness, irresponsibility and all that stuff, you're like, I don't know if I want this headache. I don't know if I want to be someone's babysitter on top of coaching them.
Right.
If that makes sense.
No, it makes. I was literally thinking, I was like, is she gonna say babysitter? Because like I feel like I've gone through that with some of the high school sailing kids I've coached, where I'm like, part of my job, I'm like hounding them. I'm like, you can't sail this weekend because you didn't turn in any homework and you've been like failing 3 classes. Like, I'm not your mom. Like why are you not doing this? Like, come on, you're 17. Like get it together. So yeah.
Now you do have the different scenarios where kids will struggle academically and but they want to do well, but it's just hard for them. That you can deal with that. I think coaches just, you're a mentor, you are a teacher, and I mean that, like, you're an educator. It just happens to be whatever sport you're coaching is the platform you're using to teach.
Yeah.
Your compassion should allow you to, be empathetic in that way.
Yeah.
Depending on what they're struggling with. But there's different scenarios, eligibility, all that, plays a role. But, at the end of the day, we're trying to get these young women and young men in the place to be successful the rest of their lives.
Right.
So academics kind of tells a story in itself about a kid. So I would say academics, body language, and just conversations on the phone. I know texting is huge now, and because of the whole, COVID situation, now coaches, I think, are allowed to FaceTime now. So that's different.
Yeah.
But just the ability to hold a conversation is huge. Can you ask questions? Can you say more than yes or no? That goes a long way. And if they're like, you can be quiet. Like there are plenty of fantastic athletes who are quiet, but you at least want to be responsive.
Yeah. So. And like, I think, and that's kind of what I was thinking too, and things that I tried to focus on and things that I would have done differently in my process. Like I said, like asking more questions, kind of engaging more, and kind of treating it almost like a job interview, like where like I kind of wish I had been more prepared in that sense, and like had researched like a little bit more about the team, or asked people I know that had gone there, even if it was former coaches of mine that graduated years ago, like kind of just different things about the teams, and to have kind of yeah, to basically like do your homework, like do your research before you go in is one thing that I would say too. That's cool. That's awesome. I guess, what was I going to say? I'm so bad at losing my train of thought.
That's okay, because I just thought of another one.
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
So texting is a huge part of the recruiting process now.
Yeah.
And you will have, recruits going through a process, and the coaches need information. So whether it's academic or, maybe some things about, their high school coach, whether it's getting a phone number or whatever, and you won't hear from some recruits, like either right away or within days or within a couple of weeks. And then all of a sudden, or even sometimes months, and the signing period starts to creep around, and then all of a sudden you hear from them. Don't be that recruit. That is a huge, that makes people crazy.
Do you think it's because of lack of planning, or do you think it tends to be, or do you think it would be like, my kind of first thought was, are you kind of their second or third choice? Like, did they get, like, my thought would be like, oh, are you only reaching out now because so-and-so didn't want you? Or like, then I'd be like, or are you just disorganized and you can think like to reach out before?
I think it could be all of that. Yeah, it totally can be all of that. But yeah, just don't do that. Don't do that. Respond to coach. And if you're not interested in a place, like, let that coach know.
Yeah.
Tell them just like, hey, thank you for your interest in me, but I think I want to go in a different direction. And that's okay. And a coach will really appreciate that, instead of wasting their time trying to, do their homework and try and get to know you. So.
That's good. That's kind of what I was going to try to ask, I think, was obviously people need to kind of be prepared sometimes with safety schools or backups. Like, people aren't always going to get in or end up being able to sign at their top choice schools. Like, kind of what's the best way, would you say, to like handle explaining that to the coaches at your backup schools? Like, because I feel like I didn't end up being really in this position, but I feel like I would have been terrified to be like, hey, I like your school, but it's like my third choice. Like I wouldn't want to admit that, but I also, like you said, you don't want to like lead them on. And like, because I know, for example, like my freshman class at St. Mary's College, like the class above me ended up being really big. And so they kind of didn't recruit that many people in my class. And then what ended up happening is there was a couple people that they thought were going to come in my class. And then at the last minute, they got off wait lists at other schools, like at like Ivies and just better schools. And so people went there, and I kind of ended up being one of the only people on my freshman team. Like, it was a very small class. And I just kind of remember, like, as the person that was there that was kind of anticipating having these other people there with me, I was like, why would you do that? Like, why would you lead them on? Like, I was like, now I'm kind of stuck, and like, I'm by myself, and like, I'm upset at these people that I don't even know exactly who they are. Like, I'm just like, so I think that, to paraphrase my long-winded question, is like, what's the best way to kind of be honest with coaches of like, hey, you're my second or third choice, without them then writing you off either, because you want to hold on to that option.
Good question. That is one question that I have not thought about, but let me see.
Or is it as simple as just being honest and being like,
it is that simple. So that 100% is always the answer. Like, just be honest in the recruiting process, but you also need to know if they are being honest with you. So knowing where you fall in line in their recruiting class. So are you their number 2, number 3? Because that'll let you know how much leeway you have, how much time that you have to make a decision. I think it is always best to kind of give a coach a timeline as to, especially early on, if possible, when you want to make a decision. Like
Right.
I want to make a decision within the next couple months. This is what I'm thinking. Where do you see me fitting in on your team, and where do I fall in your recruiting class?
I think that's I'm going to highlight that. I think that's a great question to ask at all points during the process, whether it's your first pick school or fifth or whatever. Like, where do you see me fitting in? Because that ties to another thing that I always say to people is like, maybe going to a Division I or top ranking school is going to be really cool, but are you actually going to play? Are you actually going to compete? Like, think about that and think about like, do you want to go to that top school and just be a part of that team that helps build other people up? That's amazing. That's awesome. But if you're someone that's like, no, I want to like actually play like in games and compete, like maybe ask that question, be okay with the realistic answer. Even if it's, yeah, I mean, I don't know, like we're not like banking on starting anytime soon. Like be okay with that. And then say, okay, maybe I go to a school that's, lower ranking or a division down or whatever. Like, so I get that playing time. Like, again, like where do you see me fitting in with your team and with my recruiting class? Because I think there's nothing, I don't say there's nothing worse, but I think not having an answer to that question and then picking a school and then showing up there and then being surprised by the result can really rock people. And that's the people that I think struggle or don't stick in their sport.
And like I said before, you got to make sure you're getting honest answers from the coaches. And when you do get honest answers, and let's say it doesn't pan out the way, like you're not starting when you get there, or, like you're a freshman, and freshmen are freshmen usually when you get to school. How you have to know yourself in a way, like, how am I going to be able to handle this? How am I going to handle being at the bottom of the food chain again, and then having to work your way up it? And how will I react when things don't go exactly as I want them to go? That's when adversity normally hits athletes. I would say recruited athletes anyways, because you're at the top when you're in high school, and then you're starting right back over. And you have to prove yourself. And if it doesn't work out in the first month or in the first year, you're like, oh, I'm ready to transfer, and the coach doesn't know what they're doing, and
blah, blah, blah. And I was so guilty of that. Like, I'll be totally honest. Like, I was totally planning on, like, my freshman year, I was like, I'm not going to sail that much my freshman year, whatever. And like, by my sophomore year, I was starting to get like angry. Like, I was like, I'm never traveling. Like, what is this? Like, this is crazy. And like, I didn't handle it well. And I kind of was like, I think I could have asked the question of like, what do I need to be doing like to get better? And like, I kind of asked that. And I think if I had asked better questions, I would have gotten the honest answer, which is like, we see you as being very valuable your senior year. Like, until then, you're building up. Like, we don't need you because the class above you is bigger until then. Like, that's the honest answer. And like, that's what they were predicting for me the whole time. But I was just like, I don't want to sit around and put in all this work and time and never get to compete, because sailing's a little different of like, only the people that are racing travel to the event, so everyone else just stays home. So it's like, I'm doing all this stuff and I never even get to go and like experience it or watch even. Like, I just have to stay here. And like, that was not the reason, but for a whole host of reasons, like I transferred after my sophomore year to a school that was not as good of a team, and I got a lot of sailing time, and it was great, and I was just happy to be sailing. And but if I had stuck it out, maybe by my senior year I would have been at like, one of the top 5 schools, like, and gotten a chance, and like maybe whatever. But like I said, there's other reasons in there. But I think to tie it back in, if I had asked upright as a recruit or as a freshman or as a sophomore to the coaches of like, what do you see my role being? And where do you see this going? I know actually that they would have said, your senior spring, we see you being very valuable. The class above you is huge with a lot of talent. Like, because I know the coach like on a personal level, like now, and he said that to me like since, like he was like, yeah, we're really excited for you. Like, once you got to your senior year and that class above you was gone, we like really would have needed you. Like, but anyway, that's just my little blip. But where do you see like, and being okay with the answer? Because like, I don't know if it would have been different if they had said that to me when I was in high school, when I was making the decision. I think if they had said to me, like, you're going to be supporting the people above you until your senior year, like maybe I would have said, okay, like not for me. Or maybe I would have been like, now that I have that knowledge, cool, like great, fine with it, versus being in the dark because I was afraid to ask the question made me be like kind of not that coachable athlete at one of those seasons, because I was in this place of like, I'm doing all this work and I never get to do anything. But,
and you, when you're in an unknown like that, and I think this is just people in general, when you are finding yourself in the unknown, that's when you kind of lean towards, you know, a little bit of the negativity. And I also did that. And I think, you know, I don't know if I know many athletes that have found themselves in a place of the unknown and have been absolutely positive throughout. And kudos to those who have. But like my first 2 years at Seton Hill, I struggled. I played, but I really struggled with not being number one. In just the woman who's in, and I'm going to call her a woman, who is in a position ahead of me. Like she was in her 20s and she played for the national team in Israel and just had a lot more experience than I had. And I was coming from just a totally different environment and playing style, and just me having to adapt. I would say my first 2 years, there was a lot of like, I don't get this. Like, what's wrong? Like, wrong with everybody but me.
I think that's a good, what you said too about adapt, and something that I didn't really realize at the time in college that plays, I think, such a role in the decisions of, and maybe it was just in sailing, but I think it's all sports, the decisions that coaches make of who's kind of starting sometimes have a lot more to do with factors outside of talent than you might think. Like I would get frustrated, be like, I'm beating so-and-so at practice, but they're still going, they're still starting and I'm not. And like what I realize now is like there's an element, especially as underclassmen, of like, okay, this person, like just call them, like I'm trying to think of like Jane. Like Jane is, you know, is a junior, and like not be that superiority of just age, but like Jane might be quoted like not as good as you in practice, but Jane is now in her 3rd year of college and has a better handle on the ability to travel and get back at 2 a.m. on Sunday night and then go to class Monday morning and not let it disrupt her academically. Or letting you have the time of like getting used to the routine of this before we send you to do that. Or they have the social ability to like stay calm under pressure for a long weekend, and you haven't had that many experiences with that yet. Like, and to translate, like sailing is different because it's like weekends, but like so-and-so has had more time to adjust to the pressures of college athletics or the pressures of college in general. So they're actually more suited to be doing this right now. You need a little bit more time to adjust to this new lifestyle, like than that. And like, I didn't realize that at the time or until like later on, I was like, oh yeah, sometimes it's not just on paper, so-and-so's better than them. It's other factors of like, or these people get along really well. Like, and I could imagine that in sports like basketball too, of like, this person works better with this person on the court. So they're better. Like, you might be, I don't know what that skill is for, but you might be faster, or like be better at shooting, but this person has better communication with, so like, you know, so I think that those are, I don't know, those are just good things, I think, for people to hear and kind of have an understanding of. And maybe if you just hear it now and then 2 years from now, it sits in the back of your mind when you're getting frustrated about not starting, and you're like, oh, maybe I can ask what I can be doing differently, but also recognize that it's not my time yet, and my time will come and whatever.
And just being a good teammate throughout all of that says a lot about you. Like if you're able to maintain as positive of an attitude for other people as possible when you're struggling, you know, with your own, you know, athletic issue at that time. If you can be a good teammate, coaches are going to love you, and they're going to look for opportunities, more opportunities, you know, for you now. And that's normally, I can't speak for every coach, but normally if you just be as great of a teammate and as coachable as possible when you are struggling, coaches will look to make things happen for you. If you're not, if you are just being a little jerk, and that's me trying to be polite, you know, if you're being a little jerk, you know, when you are struggling, but also coaches understand that you're growing as well. Coaches do understand that. But if you just, no matter what, you're being a jerk, coaches aren't going to look as hard, you know, to play you or put you in positions, because they feel like you don't deserve it at that point, because you are putting yourself in front of the team. That is what that is.
Yeah.
And that it is just that's a life skill.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, I feel like that's such a good lesson for. I mean, I haven't had that many I haven't had any kind of like corporate job or like, you know, I'm pretty young too and starting out, but I do feel like that applies to like jobs too. Of like, are you doing this because of self-interest, or are you doing this for the betterment of the whole group or the company as a whole or whatever? Like those lessons apply, but it's hard. Like you said, like you're growing, and I think on that note, like don't be too hard on yourself if you find yourself, whether that's in college athletics or even high school. Like if you are someone that's a struggle for you, or you're struggling and you like can't get yourself out of that mindset, like some of that too is developmental for like that stage of life, like, and like what you're going through of like adjusting to college and where your brain is at and all that. And I'm not an expert on that, but I know enough to know like some of it is just, it's hard, and it's not just easy to be like, it's not easy to just say, oh, I'm going to be a great teammate and be happy even if I'm not starting, give 100% every day and like be there with a smile on my face and give my best no matter if I'm starting whatever, because like for the good of the team, like that's hard. And like some days it'll be easier than others and some days it'll be harder than others. Like at least definitely in my experience, like there's days where it was like I can't bring myself to be happy for someone else's success. But other times you see someone have success and you're like, I'm so happy for them. Like it just becomes easier, and like it just takes, like anything, it just takes like practice and just reminding yourself and being gentle with yourself.
Yes, it takes
because you're human.
Growth. Yeah. We're all humans, and we're all just trying to figure all of this out. And it's just the two things that you can control when you're going through, you know, a tough time as an athlete or just in life are what comes out of your mouth and your effort. Those are two things that you can control. So even if you can't cheer and, you know, like, you know, do that type of stuff because you're like, man, like I'm going through it. You can always give someone a high five, and you can always pat someone on the back, and you might not have to say anything because you're not ready for it to come out, but you can do those things. And those things go a long way.
Not say negative things.
Like, or you just don't say anything negative.
Like that's where I was at the part where I was like, I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut about all of it and just sit here kind of quietly. Like, because I was like, I can't bring myself to be pumped about this for this other person. I don't even know if I can bring myself to like high five them right now. Like, but I can be like, I can make sure that I don't complain about it to other people on the team because it could get back to them or get back to the coaches. I can make sure that like, if I need to vent about it, it's to like a counselor or to my parents, like, and not people that are gonna repeat it. Like you can kind of, like you said, like you can control what comes out of your mouth, and you can control keeping your mouth shut when you need to.
And your effort.
And if you mess up and do say something bad, or like you aren't being polite, like, or you're complaining, like I think owning that, like anything in life, is really important. Like there were times where I said things where like I said it to a teammate who was a friend, but I thought like, I'd be like, I can't believe that Jane, to use the same name, is starting this weekend and we're not traveling. And then like someone else heard it and repeated it. And I went to like that person and to the Jane person and was like, I'm sorry that I said that. I was disappointed because I thought that I was going there. It wasn't appropriate for me to say that. I'm really excited for you. And like, obviously, like, you know, go team, whatever. Like, I don't know if that apology meant anything. I think kind of they were like, okay, like, but I was like, yeah, I made a mistake in saying that. And like, I can at least go and recognize, shouldn't have said that. And like, that's another thing that you can do is if you do mess up with opening your mouth and complaining, apologize to your teammates that heard it, apologize to your coaches. Because I know that maybe my teammate didn't appreciate that, but I remember my coach being like, you recognizing that, we appreciate. Like, like I understand.
Coaches love that.
Coaches
love when they don't have to coach you.
Yeah, like I remember they were like, we understand that you were bummed. And actually what ended up happening is they kind of explained their thought process on it to me too. Like they were like, we understand that you said that. Like, we're really like, thank you for admitting that was a mistake to be complaining about it in the locker room. Like, and like, they're like, you're entitled to feel that way. Like, yeah, but like, good job recognizing that wasn't the place to vent it. And like, also, this is kind of what we were thinking and why we made that decision. And here's where we see you fitting in over the rest of this season. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, great. Like, so that all ties it all back together. But.
Yeah. I mean, what we used to say is don't be a culture killer. Do
Ooh,
not be a culture killer.
that's good.
Especially if you have coaches and just a team and a program that's really trying to promote a positive atmosphere.
Yeah.
Don't be that culture killer.
Awesome. I like that. I think that's good advice for, I mean, like everything we're saying, like so much of sports can be applied to bigger life settings,
For
but I think
sure.
that one especially, like whether you find yourself in whatever group of people you're with, just don't kill the culture that you're a part of.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's awesome. I had like my kind of closing kind of question for you, or more like thought or thing, was what an athlete, maybe not an athlete you were trying to recruit, like if an athlete was saying to you, like, I'm trying to decide if it's worth it to play my sport in college because of, I don't want to miss out on other experiences, or if it's going to be too much time, or whatever I don't know if their reasoning so much matters in this question, but like, what would you say are like the 3 best things about participating in college athletics? Like things that carry over to other areas of life or within the experience itself or whatever, like kind of your almost like 3 selling points, broadly speaking. I don't know if does that make sense? You get what I'm trying to, yeah. Like,
I would say one major reason to play is being a part of a team, especially one that, you suffer together, but you can also experience some success together. That those friendships and relationships and the things that you do in the locker room and on trips and everything else, those are going to last you the rest of your life. And you will be telling those stories forever because there is absolutely nothing like it. So that would be number one, is just the relationships that you build with a team that, you're together when you're on spring break or winter break or, during times where everyone else might be home. You're a group that's together and you guys are all going through it. And there's nothing like that second family.
yeah,
And sometimes it may be a first family for some athletes.
that's a great point.
So that would be number one. Number two, I would say, like on the life skills end of it, it would be you learn to sacrifice, and sacrificing for the greater good. So like I said, you're missing out on breaks and you're staying up late to study and just all these different things and hard work. And sometimes you don't get what you want out of the hard work you put in. That prepares you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Because there's no way, like, you may know what you want to happen 40 years from now, but there's no guarantee that it's going to happen. But that doesn't mean that you don't do your best to make it happen and give yourself a chance. So I would say athletics does that. And number 3, I would say the challenge of it. Like if you are into challenges and into breaking records and making history, or just doing things that maybe no one thought that you could do, or being a part of a legacy, I think that's another reason to participate in college athletics, is just do your best to be a part of something fantastic that will last.
That's awesome.
So that's what I could come up with off the top.
No, that's good. I love those. I feel like mine would be similar. Like what I always say is like time management. Like I am so good at blocking my time, because when you only have, like, I would just do bits of homework in the 20 minutes in between class and practice, because I was like, oh my God, I gotta get it done. Like that's something that has helped me a lot. Especially like in grad school, like now, like just finding those little pockets of time to just do like 5 minutes of work, like adds up. Like it's helpful. Like time management is what I always say. I say having the coaching support, which like, and everything you said, like is really valuable. Like especially at a time when you're away, you're so used to growing up with your parents, and then you go away from home, or, whatever your caregivers were growing up, maybe not your parents. And then you go away from home, like to have adults like of various ages, like there to support you, is so valuable. I think like I kind of had an unconventional experience, like at 2 different schools and other stuff going on, but like I leaned on my coaches at different coaches at different points in so many ways of like needing an adult, like, whether that's like you end up like in the hospital and you need someone to come with you, or like just need to go in their office and like cry and be like, I'm just so overwhelmed. Like, and like, whatever that is, like, it's really valuable to have that. And then like kind of similar to what you said too, I was like the social element of kind of having this group of people when you get to school, that's kind of automatically going to be your friends, or at least friendly to you. Because I think I can't imagine going off to college and not knowing anyone, just being like,
Not knowing
oh,
a
I
soul.
have to make friends. Like, good for everyone that's done that. Like, I am so impressed by you, because like I rolled up, because sailing is fall and spring. Like, I got to school like 3 weeks before freshman orientation and like hung out with everyone. And like freshman orientation rolled around, and I was like, oh, that is old news.
Been here, done that.
Old news. Like, I was like, I know like the whole thing. And like, I think that that's valuable, especially if you're, especially if you're making this decision, you're someone that's been a part of high school sports. So I think knowing that like it kind of takes that burden of college off of you, of like, whether or not they end up actually being your best friends, I think in many cases they are, like, just to have a group there that's going to take you in and be like, you can sit with us and eat, like, is so valuable. So I don't know.
Yeah. And just like you, I think we hit on it earlier, and just like doing your best for a group.
Yeah.
And just you're gonna, if you have a family and stuff like that, like, you're gonna find different areas in your life where you either sacrifice or need to do more to complete the mission or the goal for a group of people. Yeah. And that's, on a team or with a family, or, in your job. So very important.
Awesome. I love it. Awesome. Do you have anything else? Any like last words of wisdom or commentary?
Let's see. Last words of wisdom.
Something to, no pressure. It's fine.
I'm looking.
Just, wrap it up.
Because I wrote,
I love
think
prepared.
yeah, I tried to be prepared. See, athletics got me ready for that. One of the quotes that, at least, that I live by when I coach is, be someone you needed when you were younger. And that is what I try and do.
That puts into words, like, I guess, like what I'm trying to do, honestly, with this podcast. Like, and, this is the 5th episode I've recorded. Like, I've talked with Eric just broadly about everything. I talked with a therapist about COVID-19 and like how to deal with emotions on that. And like, I talked with Alex Ray about just like bravery and perseverance. And I talked the episode that came out yesterday with a former teammate of mine about body confidence, especially as an athlete, and without getting too, I think it's a great episode. If you haven't listened to it, like, definitely check it out. I'm really proud of it. But everything that I've kind of come on, I'm trying to think about what is going to be of service to the athletes that are listening. But some of that is coming from a place of like, what are things that I wish I knew earlier, or what are conversations that I wish that I had had earlier in life, or just little lessons. And like, this is one of like, everything we talked about with the recruiting process, like just things that I didn't know, but now I know. And like, I love that quote that puts in it, because I've been thinking so much about it, like the past couple of days, of like just wanting to do what I can to be like, just be the type of mentor or coach that I would have really needed and looked up to. And I think that's awesome. Yeah. I love that quote. I'm like hitting me emotionally. It's crazy.
Well, thank you, because you're doing a wonderful job. And anyone who listens is definitely going to pick up a gem. So thank you.
That's the hope. I think this episode, I think it's awesome. I think it's great. It's exactly what I had in mind. Like, when I first started like drafting ideas, I was like, I want to have like a couple of different coaches on, like, for different college sports, or people that played college sports, talk about their experience, like, as well, like really just trying to touch all of the, like I said, different categories of different lessons and things and skills. So
for sure.
Especially in this time, it's so good to connect and see your face. Yeah, so it's awesome. I learned so much. I know, big up. Awesome. You're great. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Awesome.
Hopefully see you soon.
Yeah, hopefully. In person. Not through the screen. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye.